Oh, in this podcast, I'm going to show you how to convert. We're using just an X for a position and just a single velocity for a velocity. We're going to use PVectors instead. So go to ReggieNet, go under Resources and Materials, and find this. This is the code that we built just the other day. Simple car OOP. Don't go to simple OOP. Simple car OOP. Okay, and download it. After you do that, you'll end up with something that looks kind of like this right here. This simple car OOP folder, and then you'll have car.pde and simple car.oop.pde. You'll notice that you have two different PDE files, and those correspond to the different tabs that we made. Do not click on car.pde. You got to click on this simple car OOP, the thing that's the same name as the folder. Okay, so double click on that and you'll end up with it. Okay, and so this is what the file looked like. We had one car. Then we ended up actually with an array of cars. So we're not using this one anymore. So we're using an array. Here's where we gave birth to one car. Actually, it looks like we are using that one car. And here's where we gave birth to 10 cars. We used a for loop in order to give birth to 10 cars. New always means kind of like giving birth. And here is where now we're not driving that one car. I don't see a my car one.drive down here. It looks like we took that one out. So I'm going to actually take this out right now because we don't need that in there. And then here's where we're iterating through our array of cars again. I starts at 0, I goes up to 9, and my cars of I. So the first, you display and then driving each of the cars 0 through 9. Okay, and then our cars looked like this, right? They had attributes. They had a my color attribute, and they had a float x and a y, and they had a velocity. So the thing is. And then here's where we're driving it, right? We're driving our, here's where we're setting the velocity, right? It's going to be a random number between 1 and 3, and our x location is going to be random somewhere along between 0 and the width of the screen. Okay, and then here's where we're going to drive it. So everything is in the x field, the x component, right? We're not having anything going up or down. And in fact, when we drive, or when we display our car, we made them all at 21 height, right? So they're all down the screen like 21 pixels, and that's not really good. We want each one to have a Y. So it looks like I started adding a Y in there, but I never really finished it. Maybe some of you guys did. But we're going to change all this now. I think what we're going to do here is we're going to change this so that we use PVectors, because what's cool about PVectors, you see here where the x, we're adding x equals x plus velocity, and that's just driving us forward. We want to be able to add a y velocity and sometimes have a y velocity and an x velocity, maybe have a negative y velocity and a positive x velocity, so it goes this way, or have both negatives going this way and both positives going this way, right? So we want to have two different components to our velocity. So what we're going to do then is instead of using just this float, we're going to use something called a PVector. And you see I already had it in here. We added it like the last minute of class. So PVector, and instead of using x and y, take those out. We're going to have PVector. It's going to be called my position. If I want the x component of it, I would just type .x, and if I wanted to look at the y component or add to it, I'd type y. Okay? For the same thing for the velocity too. You want to have a velocity that maybe has a y component. Maybe it's going really fast in the y direction and really slow in the x direction. So we want to have both an x and a y component to the velocity too. So I'll have PVector my velocity. Now notice we're only in the car tab. I don't need to mess with this at all. Here's where I'm giving birth to cars, and right now I'm like in the insides of each car right here. So take out float velocity too. So this is kind of cool, right? You've got this crazy, we're not using ints and floats anymore, right? We're using these crazy classes. So here's a color and here's PVectors, right? So how do we use them? All right. Velocity, this is what we used to have. So instead of velocity being random between 1 and 3, we're going to have my velocity equals, this is where we're going to set each car's velocity. So in order to use a p-vector, you have to use the word new, and then p-vector. Make sure to capitalize both p and v. And then you're going to have an x component and a y component, so it'll be something comma something else. So, you know, I can put like 1 comma 3 or something like that, but that's going to mean it's going to go 1 unit in the x direction and 3 in the y direction every time. So instead of doing that, I'm going to use a random number, right? So random. And actually, I can have a negative velocity too, so maybe I'll have random negative 2 comma 2. So the x is going to be between negative 2 and 2, and the y component is going to be negative 2 comma 2 also. Okay, the same thing is going to be for the width, for the position vector. So my position equals new p-vector. I'm going to make sure it's capital PV, and then random. This will be where we give birth to it on the x location, on the x-axis. So you can do like 0 comma width. Actually, you don't have to do 0 comma width, right? You can just do width. And then for the y, it'll be random height. Okay, we'll leave the color ones the same. All right, display, fill, same thing. Now for the x place, the x position of the car, it's got a position vector now. So my position dot x. And now we've got our own y positions for every car too. So my position dot y. That's the beauty of the vector, the p-vector. These are all the same. Okay, now we want to drive it. That's going to be a little bit harder. Okay, so x equals x plus velocity. We're going to have my position dot add. Actually, this is not hard at all. My velocity. This is how you add vectors in using p-vectors. Isn't that cool? So you're adding velocity to my position. Now the last thing we need to do is loop it, right? So now we're going to do, if this is where it gets kind of hard. So if my position dot x is greater than width, my position dot x equals 0, right? Let's just do that for right now. Save it. I'm going to save it and then run it. See if it works. And wait till you see what happens now. You should have ran it before, by the way. Look at that. So now you've got stuff moving in all different directions. Pretty cool, huh? So this is the problem. Here, we're going to have 4 cases. Because if its x is greater than its width, because some of the cars are going to be moving backwards now, and some of them are going to be moving up and going above the 0 and down below the height. So I'm going to tell you guys, if the x is greater than the width, you want to set it to 0. If the x is less than 0, you want to set it to width, right? If it's greater than width, if x component is greater than width, you want it to set it to 0. If x is less than 0, you want to, if x is less than 0, you want to set it to width. Then you also have to have, if y is greater than height, you want to set y to 0. And if y is less than 0, you want to set it to height. Okay, so it kind of looks like this. My position dot x is less than 0. My position dot x equals width. You're going to have a couple of these, right? They're all encased by like this, okay? So then you can do the width or the height one too. If my position dot y is less than 0, if your y went less than 0, it's probably going up. So my position dot y equals height. I'm like in a hurry because I have to pick up a child. If my position dot y is greater than height, then it's going down, right? My position dot y equals 0. That should be it. Okay, let's see if this one works. I'm saving it all the time. And so now they're looping. Beautiful, huh? That's it for now. The next thing we're going to do is change our array into an array list. Enjoy.